Hi, and welcome to the City of Newark's Caribbean Commission program on immigration. My name is Esther Lewis, and I'm the past chair of the commission, current adjunct professor at NJIT, and a 19-year educator in the City of Newark. Today, the Caribbean Commission is here to provide you with information about immigration. The Caribbean Commission was formed in 2015 under the leadership of Mayor Ras J. Baraka and Council President Crump to be a liaison to the community, to inform, to engage, to educate, and to recommend policies that will improve the lives of the residents. Joining me in studio today is our very own chairperson, Tasha David, who is from Honduras. We also have Commissioner Charlene Romano, who's our secretary from Trinidad and Tobago, and our very special guest, immigration attorney Winston Tucker. Welcome. At this time, I would like for each of our commissioners to introduce themselves and just to share a bit about why this topic of immigration is important, starting with Commissioner David.
Hi, my name is Tasha David, proud alum of Westside High School, Berkeley College, and King University. As a lifelong resident of Newark, I have been exposed to the diversity of our rich immigrant population, especially in the West Ward where I live. The Caribbean Commission is here to identify and provide solutions to the many issues that plague our migrant community. As the president of the Caribbean Commission and daughter of Honduran immigrants, I'm excited to work hand in hand with the diaspora. Today is the start of a 3-part immigration initiative to educate our community.
Thank you, Commissioner David. And now we'll move on to Commissioner Romano. Can you tell us a little about yourself and why the topic of immigration is important to you?
Hello, I am Commissioner Charlene Romano, and I am originally from the East Orange, South Orange Avenue area. I'm currently a homeowner in the Central Ward, and I am a proud HBCU graduate of Hampton University. I pride myself on celebrating my Caribbean heritage and organizing and volunteering at local community events and fundraisers. My parents migrated in the late 60s and early 70s from Trinidad and Tobago to this area, and I am the first in my family born in America. When it comes to immigration, I am driven by connecting local immigrants to the resources to assist them with status updates or their journey towards U.S. citizenship, specifically those that are deterred by social and economic barriers, such as being unable to complete the process because they may be unable to read, write, or communicate effectively, or unable to afford the fees associated with an immigration specialist or attorney, or fearful of deportation. I'm looking forward to this conversation today.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Romano. And now we move on to our special invited guest. Thank you very much for being here today, Mr. Tucker. Can you tell us how long you've been an immigration attorney and what drove you to become involved in this type of work?
First of all, I want to thank you for inviting me, and at the same time congratulate your mayor, Ras J. Baraka, for forming this very important commission. Now, as to myself and why I decided to practice immigration over other areas in law, it so happened that I came to the United States and I came on a scholarship through the Institute of International Education. I decided to leave the scholarship because I did not like the area where I was being housed. And from then I experienced some problem into transitioning from a student visa into legal permanent residency. It so happened also that in that transition, I found myself in an administrative hearing, which is equivalent today to a deportation court hearing. And from there, that sparked my interest in immigration.
I immigrated from Jamaica in 1995, and that's been a while, so I can imagine that so much has changed since then. What are some USCIS benefits and programs that exist that our residents should know about?
Well, one important area that I find that is very useful in the Caribbean community today and overall, not only the Caribbean community, is VAWA, violence against women. And in saying violence against women, you find also that men are also abused in a relationship. So it covers men also, but primarily women. So I would say violence against women is one area that we should pay attention to, because too often you'll find women deciding that they are married to a United States citizen and they're being abused, sometimes abused and having children in the household, and decided that they need to stay quiet and suffer the consequences of the abuse so they can get their benefit. The violence against women, the VAWA provision, is a provision that says to you, you don't have to stay in an abusive relationship. There is help in immigration for you. That's one. Another thing that goes under the radar much of the time is the fee waivers. And as you know, the immigrant community, especially with the provision in the law now that you cannot work unless you have employment authorization, then the income stream is very low. Nevertheless, you have fee waivers that are available. So that's an area that must be paid attention to.
Okay, so those are two very important benefits that people should be aware of. Commissioner David, based on that and probably conversations you may have had with the community, do you have any questions that you would want to follow up with?
Sure. The community would like to know, are there any tips on how to best help new and old immigrants adjust their status?
Well, yes, there are quite a few, but outside of the regular and rudimentary procedures where you might be married to a United States citizen and you entered with a visa, and so therefore with that you're going to be able to adjust your status. There are areas where, with the changes in the law in 2001, in December of 2000, which came into effect in April of 2001, what you find is that you have many who are in the United States, and what we say is that they are landlocked, meaning that they are not eligible to adjust their status. Now, the Obama administration, before he left office, came with a program that is called, that is the Provisional Waiver, and that addressed the problem where if you're here in the United States, you cannot adjust your status. If you leave and try to get your immigrant visa to come back in the United States, you're going to be told at the embassy that you overstayed, so you're barred, either for 3 years or 10 years. Now, to get around the bar, you now have a provisional waiver that you can use to process your green card if you have to leave the United States. For those who are here in the United States, one thing that I find, if you search long and hard enough, is that sometimes you might be able to find a provision in the procedure that will allow that person to grandfather their petition. It's a grandfathering process, they call it, where they have a petition in the past, before April of 2001, that they could have benefited from. They might have been a derivative of, for example, a petition filed by an aunt for their mother, and that was before they became 21. But by the time the petition matured, they aged out. But nevertheless, they were a derivative at some point. So if they're here and find themselves in a situation where they can find a situation like that, that would grandfather their current application process, then that's a nugget that's worth exploring.
Okay, so Commissioner Romano, do you have a follow-up question?
Going through a process like that, what would be the estimated costs associated with changing your status or updating your status?
Well, the estimated cost in terms of filing fees to start with can say a straight-up application without waivers. The immigration fees, they are usually about $1,760. Now, if you're going to start to look into areas where you have to do waivers and or you might have to establish that you qualify through the grandfathering process, then there are additional fees. And waivers can run about $930 if you need a waiver, and the grandfathering process where you pay a $1,000 penalty if you are going to be using the grandfathering process. So some applications can, quite frankly, add up to near $4,000, and that is without practitioner's fee. Now, the practitioner's fee is the big area that you need to pay attention to. And I always say that you don't need to go through a practitioner's office and is coming out hearing that you're going to be paying something like what you would need to get into buying a home. So once you're in that situation and it's a kind of money that you're hearing that is sounding high, I always say a consultation for the most part is probably anywhere from $100 to $200. It's worth it to go get a second opinion. Compare.
Definitely, that's definitely very important information for our residents to be aware of. And so we're going to move into the area of talking about what is happening today, like what changes are in effect and what policies are pending that our residents should be aware of, especially with our new administration.
Well, yes, what I will say to that is there is a breath of fresh air in the immigration procedures, meaning there was a time when you had persons out there who qualified for benefits and their position was, yes, I hear you that I qualify and that the law support me, but this is them speaking now to me, what I have observed for myself is that too often I'm seeing where the law is on your side and then the administration that existed is working hard enough to take it away from you. So with that circumstance, you found many did not bother to go about filing for benefits that they were qualified for. We are finding now that people are coming out and are filing for benefits, and the adjudicative process, the respectful process that we had come to have gotten used to with the adjudicating officers, it is back because they're under less pressure. The adjudicative process that we had become used to in immigration court, it is back because they're being less pressured by politics. So there's a change, and it is to the betterment.
Okay, so that's definitely good information to know. Commissioner David?
So when will we know the fate of our DACA children?
Well, yes, and that is right in line, and it kind of dovetail with the previous inquiry. And deferred action, DACA, deferred action for young people, is a program that came out of the Obama administration. And it so happened that when President Obama was leaving office, he made a special request to Trump and his administration not to disturb that program. But like everything else, the former President Trump decided that it is something that he was going to disturb because he prided himself as being a disturber. And under his administration, he came with an executive order to end the DACA program. It ended up in court, and it ended up in court to the point where it was allowed to continue, but only for those who had previously applied. So new applicants could not apply. It ended up in the Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court decided that the program should go on. And the program started again with persons renewing their applications, and those who qualified now were now new applicants were putting in applications. Recently, you had a judge in Texas who decided that he was going to stop it again, pure politics, and that order from that judge is allowing the program to continue for those who already have it and is renewing their application. But for new applicants, it's dead for now. The Biden administration is presently, from what is being said, is working on an immigration package to include that immigration package into their human infrastructure package, which is going to run anywhere from $3 to $4 billion and trillion dollars, by the way, $3 to $4 trillion. And it is outside of the politics that's scaring everyone. On the Republican side, it's the amount of money that is also scaring them. So hopefully the Democrats will be able to get their act together, and from all indications, if they're able, they'll be able to get it through the House of Representatives. The big problem is going to be getting it through the Senate. And you have two senators who, Manchin and the senator from Arizona, Sinema, who for one reason or another have been not going with the Democratic Party's agenda 100% all the time. So we'll see where and how they come out on this in the future.
Will there ever be a time where students will be eligible for status adjustments?
Students, I'll address that from the standpoint of what the Trump administration did as it relates to students and how they could adjust. There was a time when you entered the United States as a student, you would enter with a student visa, F1 visa that is, and in some cases you have J visas, which have conditions on them that says you have to go back home for at least 2 years. And incidentally, it's one of those J1s that I came in on, and my problem ended up was that 2-year homestay provision. I had to find a way to get around it, because by then I had a family here. So therefore, those who have the provision, the homestay provision after the program is ended can experience some bumps in the road. But when you came in as a student and the F1, you would be recognized by the inspectors, those who inspected you when you're coming in, and they would invariably stamp in your passport that you're here for a duration of status, meaning that they did not have a date certain when you had to leave. And because of that duration of status category, then you would never ever accrue unlawful present time, which means you were able to adjust your status in the United States, providing that you had a sponsor with a visa that's available. But with the Trump administration, they came into office and they attacked that particular provision. So they took away that by changing the regulations, which now says that if you came in on a student visa, then you no longer have protection as a duration of status person. So that's the big change. So the adjustment of status process have gotten somewhat more difficult for students, but not impossible. The thing I say to students, however, is that if you're coming in to study, stick with your program and go to the institutions. Complete your study. There are always ways of when you're starting to find that you're having difficulty to try to address that through family members and through community organizations, which in essence is some of the things that the Caribbean Commission will have been dealing with.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Ramani, do you have a question.
As we're talking about the juveniles, what piece of advice would you give to undocumented juveniles that may be charged with a crime? It's another question from the community.
Well, yes, and it so happens that we get that quite frequently, and I'll address it because it's so important, especially in the context of the gun culture that somehow is attracting our young people. And I don't understand for myself what it is, and I try to speak to young people as to what it is that invites them to this gun culture. And the thing that I'm hearing most of all is that not that they have a gun to use it, but they end up having a gun to gain popularity. And all too often they are pulled over, searched, and then they're in possession of a weapon. And it is not like the old days where the possession of a weapon you would probably get a slap on the wrist because it kind of relates to the Second Amendment issue, which some of these adjudicators are familiar with. But with the kind of violence that we're finding in the especially inner cities now, then gun crime isn't getting the kind of breaks that they would have gotten in the past. My suggestion to young people is, and I say this to those who I have a contact with, if I were in your position, in my situation today, in your situation today, I am not going to be taking a ride with anyone who, even if I know them, I don't ask them first what they have in their car, because some of the times you take things for granted. So I would say to young people, especially with guns and especially hanging out with friends, know who you're hanging out with and what they have in their possession. The other issue of drugs is somewhat changing because the one issue that they would come after some communities for would be possession of marijuana, and sometimes small possessions. You have many states now have been decriminalizing small amounts of marijuana. So that's still not out of the woods because that's on a state level. It's still not there yet on a federal level where they have decriminalized it. But in the near future, we expect that to happen. I'm not nevertheless saying that it is okay now for you to run out and associate yourself with, in your language, all the weed that you can smoke. Right. Okay?
So, we have discussed several important topics so far, and I feel like we're coming to a close, but I want to know, do you have any additional words of advice or things that we haven't touched on for the Caribbean community? And as you're finishing up, just please share with us how the community can contact you should they choose to do so.
Well, yes, we have dealt with primarily the immigrant visa side of the issue when it comes to those who want to know how they can be in the United States. There's also another side of it that is the non-immigrant aspect. And incidentally, student visas are part of the non-immigrant aspect because with those you're coming in for a particular purpose temporarily. And with COVID, what we're finding is that the applications process at the embassies around the world, not only in the Caribbean, is has backed up with applications sitting because they have not been able to schedule interviews. And the embassies are just now coming out of the pandemic, but it is being approached on a country by country basis. So I say to those who have been sitting and waiting to enter the United States, they need to contact the embassy in their area. Go on the website, travelstate.gov, and check on the different embassies as to what they're requiring and how they're going to go about addressing the backlog of applications that they are experiencing. As it relates to fees, that might have been sitting there and usually would have expired within a year. I believe there have been some provisions being made to look into allowing those fees that would have probably gotten stale by now for applicants to be able to continue to use it. So I would say to you to not be in a hurry to run out and pay the fees all over again. Try to explore the possibility that they will allow that old fee to go past the previous deadlines. So that's one aspect with the non-immigrant visas. And at the same time, two important areas, political asylum and fee waiver, citizenship. Now with political asylum, we saw, and unfortunately, in the last administration, the talk of the town was, how could you treat babies on the borders in the way that you were treating them? So the Biden administration took over, and what they have a policy, overall policy of allowing mothers and children to come in. They have an overall policy of allowing those who are ill to come in, and at the same time, when you have, say, 200,000 persons coming in at any one of your borders in any 1 month, that is going to be alarming. So they also had to reinstitute some of the Trump's policies where they had to turn back some who are coming in. So this is happening in the area of asylum. In immigration court, one thing of important is that the previous Attorney General had some decisions that was reversed by this present Attorney General that is going to make the asylum process much easier and make it more in tune and more normal to what we have been used to. And having gone through all of this, we now come to citizenship, which deals with empowerment. And having worked with the Caribbean community, including the Caribbean Commission over the years, I know citizenship is that issue that empowers many members in the community, and they always want to hear about how they can go about citizenship. And it is something that they should pay close attention to. One thing I want to say is the price and fees for citizenship over the years have increased dramatically. From in the early days when we worked with organizations here in New Jersey and Newark, from $35 to $65 to $95 to now $725.
Yeah, when I became a citizen, it was $250.
That's
$2,000.
right.
So.
Now, there's a fee waiver that's available that many don't pay attention to. So there is that fee waiver. Pay attention to the fee waiver because you can get your citizenship done without having to pay any cost except the cost that a practitioner might charge you. And you have so many organizations around now that are focused on helping applicants complete their citizenship application. They only try to stay away from that when the applicant have legal problems, like they might have arrest record in the past.
Okay. So what's your contact information and how can the community get in touch with you?
Yes, I can be reached at 917-692-2422. That is 917-692-2422. And if you call, you don't get me, then send me a text and I'll be in touch with you.
So at this time, Commissioner Romano is going to provide some very important resource and information to you.
Hopefully throughout this conversation you realize that the key to immigration is to only seek a lawyer or an accredited immigration rep. Over the past couple weeks, we've had the opportunity of meeting some community relations officers that are connected here to the Caribbean Commission and the City of Newark. Ms. Kelly Ayala is our community relations officer from the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, which you've heard us refer to as USCIS. And There is also a Mr. Thomas Ingargiola, who is our Community Relations Officer for ICE. Mr. Thomas Ingargiola gave us a contact number for the Victim Engagement and Services line. It is 1-833-383-1465.
Thank you, Commissioner Romano. And we're going to pass it over to our chairperson, Commissioner David, who's just going to tell us, wrap us up with some news about the commission, some more resources, and, how you can contact the commission.
So the ways that we could contact the commission is through at Newark Caribbean, and you can find us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. And with the Office of International Relations and Diaspora, you can reach them at 973-733-4477. And don't forget to keep wearing your mask, and let's go get vaccinated. Thank you.
So I would like to thank you all for participating in this discussion today, very important discussion. I hope that our residents found it informative. As we go forward, we will try to bring more programs such as this, whether we're talking about resources that exist here in the city for all residents, including you, our Caribbean residents, as well as to connect the diaspora, like bringing in our Council Generals. So thank you very much for being here, Commissioner David, Commissioner Romano, and our expert guest, Attorney General Winston Tucker. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you join us next time on our Caribbean immigration discussion.